So now that we've seen how the board game works, how are we going to implement it in Windows and C Sharp? I thought the simplest thing would be to only show one row of the guesser's colors, which will be represented and selectable through these four buttons right here. And as you can see, when you click, each time you click on a button, it cycles through the various different colors. So instead of doing a complicated thing where you select pegs or select colors or that kind of thing, you simply click on a button to cycle through all the various colors. When you selected your desired sequence, you hit the submit button, and then instead of having the little white pegs and red pegs and stuff for the feedback, all that I do is I have two numbers that display. The one on the left displays how many colors are correct but in the wrong position, and the number on the right displays how many colors are in the correct position. And the number here displays how many tries we have left. And I've also added, since presenting this material during class, I've also added a couple more buttons. The solution button sets all of the pegs to the true colors, to the secret combination, but it doesn't submit it. If you want to cheat and you want to actually submit it, then you just hit submit. And reset resets the entire game back to the first secret sequence. So we're going to implement this program in several little steps. And the first step is to give you an understanding of how we handle colors in C Sharp. Most controls in Visual Studio have a back color property. Let's bring up Visual Studio and I can show you that. So let's click on this form, and you can see here in the Properties window there's the back color property. And right now it's set to the same color that you see in the designer view. If I click on this down arrow, it gives me three categories of colors. The first one is called Custom, which looks a lot like a color selector in a lot of Windows programs, especially like Microsoft Paint. So you can select any color you want. Let's do this blue. See? It actually says that the name of it is blue, which is interesting. Another feature of these colors is that you can actually right-click on one, and you can specify exactly the color, the shade and intensity that you want. You can even use the RGB values right here to specify an exact color. And once you've selected it, just click on Add Color, and there it is. Ooh, that's kind of hurts my eyes. Another way to select a color is to use the Web category. And the Web category gives you names for all the colors that it has that Visual Studio knows the names of. So let's pick something like light steel blue. That looks cool. And the third category is System. When you create a program, all the colors of all the controls are defaultly system colors. That means that when your application runs on your computer, it will have the same theme. It'll have the same color scheme as you selected for your desktop theme. When you give it to one of your friends and they run it on their computer and they have a different desktop theme, it will match their desktop theme, which is pretty cool, and that's what you normally want. However, sometimes when you make say you want to make a little golf game, and you always want the background to be green, to look like the grass. So you would never want the user's desktop theme to override the green grass. You don't want the grass to be brown, blue, or red. So in that case, you would choose a web color. You know, that's a nice shade of green. Perhaps, ooh, lawn green, perhaps. So we've already seen how you can set a controls color in the designer. Now let's see how you can look at and set a controls color at runtime. So let's double click on the button 1 control. And this will take us to its click handler, which I've already worked on a little bit to save a little bit of time. And this handler, what it does is it looks at the back color property of button 1 and uses the double equal sign to compare it to cornflower blue. Okay. Now what is this color? Color is an object called a structure that has attributes and behavior, and its most common type of attribute is a color. So if I were to erase this portion right here and type a period immediately after color, I would get a list of all the colors that I can choose from. You can't see the actual color, which is a bit of a bummer. Let's try goldenrod. Ooh, that sounds cool. Okay. So I have an if statement here that checks if the color of button 1 is goldenrod. What do we do? Well, it wants to set the color to coral. Okay. If it's not goldenrod, we're going to set that color. I'm going to change this so that we set it to goldenrod. Okay. So take a minute and think, what will this program do the first time that we click on button 1? Well, let's look at the designer real quick. This is neither goldenrod nor the other color. This is slate gray. Right? So when we first click on this button, the code's going to check if it's equal to goldenrod. It's not. We're going to skip the first block of code. We're going to go to the else statement, which says to set the button's color to goldenrod. Then the next time we click, it's going to be goldenrod, so we're going to set it to coral. Then the following time that we click, it's going to be coral, so it will not be goldenrod. So we're going to go to the else and we're going to set it to goldenrod. So the color of the button will toggle between goldenrod and coral. So let's see that in action. Now it's slate blue, like it was in the designer. Click on it once, it's goldenrod. Click on it again, it's coral. You see that difference? Whee! That's fun. So I'm going to leave it as an exercise for the student, that's you guys, to expand this to 6 different colors. So let me do a flow chart, just so you can get a little hint for how to do this.